Well, hello there, everyone. It's me, the angry anime fan here again. And the angry anime fan here will bring you probably the last discussion manga before making the video of the best mangas of these years or so. Sorry, got a little distracted in my head. This is Eden Zero, a floating gem in space. Something I would like to call give it a chance. Predictable it may be, you may not know where the story is heading, but it's definitely not a bad so far. It has been a pretty good first impression on me. And I'm not only saying that as the only, well, not the only, but as one of the few surviving Hiromashima fans on YouTube left. And I have seen some people who have defended it together with me, but when it comes to reviews, I feel like I am one of the last survivors. Luckily, I did find one guy. I think he was a pretty good defender of it. But we'll see, won't we? What happens on it all. Eden Zero. Unlike many of the other mangas before, it only came for about 6 months ago, meaning that it's relatively new. Only has about 26 or so chapters under his belt, which in a way is pretty low, but also pretty high given the fact that unlike so many other people, he only took a break when he decided to do it on during the vacation time. So the fact that he managed to deliver so many so quickly is pretty amazing. It's one of the reasons why I always feel like Hiromashima is one of the better artists out there. And hopefully I will still be feeling true to that. And what I mean by that, I mean that he won't be one of those manga artists that suffers from writer's disease or whatever they call it, manga exhaustion. Because if he does, then I will be pretty sad. Of all the people that I believe will never have any shred of doubt, I believe it will be him. What can we say about Eden Zero? The Adventure of Shiki Granbell, Shiki, which is Japanese for all seasons, once again following the trend that is very common in Hiromishima's stories about a main male character usually being named after seasons, so to speak. And that Rebecca, the main female character, who a lot of people criticize being looking very lot like Lucy, well, we'll get to that in a bit, finds him on the robot planet. After seemingly rescuing him or he rescues her, when the robots that live there suddenly turns rogue, it turns out that the robots did not turn rogue. They willingly became like that in order to chase Shiki away because of his adopted grandfather, a robot calling everybody called the Demon Lord, told them to do they needed to get Shiki out in space. And it's pretty sad, though, that when the robots deactivate without him knowing. The adventure stakes there, and for a while it looks like it's not so very clear on what Eden Zero is going. And not even the title was certain. We only got it in the 6th or 5th chapter or so, but it didn't get an explanation until, 10 chapters later or so. Turns out Eden Zero is named after the ship they are currently staying on. Ether, this. Well, I know. Sorry, I forgot the entire title of it. But Eden Zero is the spaceship that Shiki is now the captain of, or at least I presume he will be, unless something negative happens. So the adventure really takes a new turn for the better, as they need to track down the different maidens of the ship in order to travel to Mother, because the main goal of the gang is to travel to beyond the Sakura cosmos in order to find a space entity that is known as Mother, because Shiki wants to help Rebecca getting her very new increase in subscribers by filming Mother, and also finding out why he feels like he knows her. So yeah, Eden Zero is also pretty unique because it is a space adventure, and space adventure is nothing new. But it's worth noting that it has also a fantasy feel to it. We have seen space fantasy before. I mean, Escaflowne, was that a trend? Although technically that wasn't space, and that wasn't a manga. That was an anime. Hmm. Do we have any space fantasy? I know we do. It's just that I cannot put my finger on it, which I'm thinking of right now. So in the end, I will consider Eden Zero to be one of the more unique ones. We finally have a space a fantasy adventure, and even Hiro Mashima himself feels like he has an idea of his own. So the fantasy, and I am far. Of course, we'll get to another part in future. And what makes it also interesting that the planets are not usually planets. They are usually just shaped as something that stick out more. But when they land on that, it's meaning that these planets are normal planets. It's basically just cities, so to speak, traveling to cities where these planets have. So it's a pretty neat way of it all dealing with it. And it also has a fighting system called Ether Gear. So far we have no idea what Ether Gear is, except that it came from the, well, the Dark Ages, which also, by the way, hasn't been explained so far. And and what else? It's what is that word I'm looking for? It has many different abilities. But it's not yet, as I said before, it's not yet explained what an ether gear is. Only thing is that people have ether in their bodies, similar to how magic existed in the previous world of Fairy Tale. And ether gear is basically what allows them to manipulate the ether inside them like a machine. Basically, ether gear is a combination of magic and machinery. Machinery because the bodies can be modified, because a person can modify their own bodies using that, and magic because they're using the ether, which is the flow of all life inside the bodies. A fusion of it all, almost like not a space opera, not a cowboy space steampunk. Yeah, steampunk. That was what I was looking for. That is pretty neat. But as I said before, it's still not explained exactly where ether gear comes from, and it seems to be more common than we previously thought, or maybe it's just common to powerful individuals. I have a theory where ether gear is, though, so I'll tell that a little quickly before I forget. I think ether gear reflects a person's desires or wishes, or more like what they are strong with. And also even their personalities a little bit, because so far every single ether gear user has a matching personality, or at least a matching job together with their ether gear, so to speak. For example, Shiki has the power to control gravity, and he's a very space out kind of guy, and also a guy who wants to be friends, meaning he draw people in, and he's also modeled to be the Demon King's successor, who, by the way, also was a leader and somehow drew in people like a black hole. Um but he wants to draw in friends and destroy enemies. Rebecca has recently gotten an ether gear that she has not yet used, and so we don't know what it is. But it seems to be able to fire energy beams from her thrust. She is a shooter, can shoot very good with her happy blasters, and is pretty spacing out also, meaning that she can really knock out things out with a gun. So it makes sense for her to shoot. Wises have a power to control machine or model machine. He seems the future he was in an alternate future he was a scientist as well as a professor, meaning that he's always been one for machinery and tinkery, and he's also a guy who prefers to use strategy rather than brute force to fight. Homura's power is allows her to summon a sword that can take many different shapes in her ether gear, and she has a theme of samurai, although she wanted a knight. And she is silent and deadly. I mean, she's not really silent, but she's rarely expressive. But when she fights, she is deadly she's deadly serious, similar to how an iron will that's not a sword. And finally, Jin has a design of a ninja, and a ninja disappears like a wind. Is silent like the wind, which is only making sense that he has a wind ability, and also wants to be deadly and taking things quickly, similar to how the wind always blows quickly and fiercely to a lot of people. So yeah, those are many of the ether gears we have seen so far, which I feel like reflects a person's abilities. Granted, it may not be that way, and it feels all too complicated for Hiromashima to add something like that in. So whatever the origin is of the ether gear, I hope we see them at least in the future. It doesn't have to be complicated, at least just an explanation on what ether gear is and how does one gain it. Because it seems like you can either get it by some power other, or if you are in a situation where the ether in your body gets stimulated so it can evolve into a gear. So I guess we'll find out in future, hopefully. Now, having seen Eden Zero's praise, it is not without its flaws. One of the biggest flaws of Eden Zero, which takes a little time to get used to, is the fact that the art is very remarkably similar to Fairy Tail. It was even the same author, so duh. But in all seriousness, people felt like the art was so on the six faces that it's pretty difficult to look at these characters and not see those characters. And I can agree, it took a little while to get used to it, but eventually these characters have so different personalities other than them that them having different places. Second of all, while Eden Zero seems to be popular, it seems to be selling well, it is still not exactly clear to me if it's a surviving manga. Hearing some rumors makes me a little bit worried that is Eden Zero really going to exist for 3 more years or so, at least till it reaches 200 chapters and at least an anime release. Because let me say this: if it ever does get an anime release after it reached over 100 chapters, which will probably take about 2 years or so, then I hope the cast is more of unknowns. Unknowns is a little bit more enjoyable than not of it all. As I said before about the Ether Gear system is nice, but it's still not explained if it has any weaknesses, and a lot of people seem to rely on their Ether Gears. Well, although Shiki is worth noting that although he relies on it, he is also very hand to hand. So he's basically combining hand to hand with it. And the main character so far hasn't been beaten, which can be pretty dull for a lot of people, haters. So it's not exactly sure on when will he meet an opponent he knows he can't beat. And it's just his gravity and hand to hand the only shtick he can do. Can't he do more? And I think he can do more. It's just that we're not sure exactly how that much can do. Because again, the Ether Gear is not exactly known how much limited the power of them are. Another thing is that, another thing that, while the story is clear, we are going to find the four Shrine Maidens and find Mother. It's not exactly sure on where it's going to head to after that. The pacing of the manga is remarkably fast, unlike so many other mangas, which I actually appreciate, but it can also be an Achilles heel, depending on how you look at it. So it's more of the fact that I'm not so sure that once they have collected all these maidens, where is the story going to head to then? That's what I'm actually unsure of. Then they're going to find Mother, and if they find Mother, does that mean the manga is over? It just feels like Eden Zero can have thrown in many things more of it all. Most of it all, we have been introduced to this chronophage, this natural disaster of a creature. And we have even gotten a reference that time doesn't mean much. Does it mean much because there's a creature that can eat time or something else? In fact, Xiao Mei, this girl that explained to us that time doesn't mean much, has Hiromashima forgotten her, or are we gonna see her again? She did say, "One day you will know who I am." So I hope we will see her again. Mind you, I want to see her again. She looked pretty adorable. And finally is the fact that a lot of people have been criticized the fact that Hiromashima is allowing aliens to become villains, and that is creating, a controversial view to it all. I mean, I believe that aliens exist, so They probably not like this if they saw it, but I still believe that readers are being stupid. In that case, I will have to say, then shouldn't you call Quentin Tarantino a racist too? Think writes those scripts with pretty foul language and that N-word, so I'm just saying. Although granted, however, he never really portrays the African American in his shows as extreme villains, although not exactly good guys either. It depends on the situation, I guess. So yeah, I mean, it's not really that way, but I do hope that Hiromashima, in if he's gonna introduce more members of that's gonna join Eden Zero, I hope we will see some alien join it. We have been foreshadowed of one alien joining. I just hope she will. It's not exactly clear if she will though. But yeah, what another reason why I like the Eden Zero is the characters. The characters are pretty simple, so I like simple characters. It makes it more interesting to relive. Although a lot of people have criticized Stein, it's true. But he has also written a little bit different than many Hiromashima characters. He's a jerk through and through, but it also has some hidden golden side. But mostly he just looks out after himself. Is he gonna have character development, or is he always gonna be that smugly? The thing is, do we want him to be smugly or not? And Homura is a pretty silent girl with a adorable habit of always blunting out what she's feeling, and yet she is still so very deadpan faced, and she's pretty awesome and cool and dresses good. And Rebecca can be pretty ditzy. I mean, one of the biggest problem people have is the fact that we saw Happy again. But this Happy is way different than Fairytale Happy. This Happy is a little bit more of a straight man. And also, he seems to have clothes this time. At least I hope he will still have clothes. The mascot of this show, though, is Pino, an adorable little robot. I wonder, though, is Pino something else, or are we gonna see a development in her character as well? The fact that she seems to be modeled a lot after a fairy just creates another thing of it all. And then we had Elsie, the character that was the Elsa clone, which a lot of people criticize as well. So yeah, I mean, the Eden Zero has a potential to go a little bit deeper into the space, and I do hope we see a lot more people joining the Eden Zero crew. I just don't know who is gonna join, and well, for what purpose, so to speak. Because Shiki and Rebecca are dream. However, the rest of the crew doesn't really have a dream. Wise just looks out for himself. Homer wants to find the Demon King, which is Shiki now, and if she does, then what? And well, the rest, is what it is. And Pino just wants to follow along Shiki because she wants to follow on with her previous master's dream, which is also Shiki's dream now, to find Mother, because Siggy, the former demon lord, had a tragic dream of finding Mother, perhaps in order to get reborn again, because he knew his time was up. So this adventure of Eden Zero is a nice fusion of space, adventure, fantasy, and time. I mean, the time paradoxes can be pretty difficult to understand. And I think actually Hiromashima changed the tone in it a little bit when we got to Norma with the time situation. I think they were trying at the beginning to say that time doesn't mean much because, well, it just means that we will have time slips. But then we turned out that it's a different kind of time, a creature that can rewind the planets, creating alternate realities in it, basically paradox free. It's super complicated and yet easy to understand as all, and yet easy to understand anyway. Easy to understand after all, and then creating different characters of it all. A nice touch in it all. So I like that. But we still don't have really a main antagonist. We are meeting antagonists, but we're not meeting main. Granted, however, it wasn't clear in Fairy Tail, the previous manga, who the main antagonist was for a very long time. I mean, the first main antagonist was Jelal, and when he was defeated, we were introduced to Hades. Although Hades was foreshadowed a lot. Then we got the note that Sereth existed, and we finally saw Acnologia. So Sereth or Acnologia was implied to be the main antagonists of this manga, and eventually they became that way. So who is going to be the main antagonist in Eden Zero is too early to say because we haven't seen that kind of villain yet. There is the government system of justice, but it's not exactly sure if he is ruthless justice or if he's really kind of justice. Because again, Elsie seems to be pretty chummy with the uh, well, Shiki because she owed Demon King Siggy a debt, and Shiki wants her to be her his friend. But I just wonder, will it really be that way? I mean, if this Elsie turns out in the end to be an antagonist, that would be a nice spin on the Ersa character, you know. But maybe she will become an anti-hero, looking out for herself, more like Wyses and not a true ally, just someone who helps occasionally. That will only put Justice in the more of will he have a villain role or something else. The fact that Justice will look a lot like the pressing Edosi once again, who looks like Ersa, creates a pretty ironic situation in it all. So I would recommend read Eden Zero. I mean, you may not really like the story of it all, but the story is not what drives it completely. The character in the story of the adventure that it takes gives a raid master feel to it, and I like that. It makes it a lot of potential. The characters once again drives the story, easy to understand. The art is wonderful as usual, and the combat, although the fight is still one shot and not so very big on the fighting at all, it does have some nice moments. And Hiromashima has this typical comedy of it all, many combat movies. Of course, the ecchi is what a lot of people get turned off from. I forgot to mention that in one of my previous discussions of Shokugeki no Soma. Ecchi is one of the best things of Shokugeki no Soma, although the orgasms can be pretty strange sometimes. So I mean, I'm all for the ecchi in Eden Zero because that was what was common in Fairy Tail. Big boob girls which are very strong. I mean, in real life, I'm probably not so much a sucker for big boobs, unfortunately. But I really like in manga and anime to when big boobs girls who are very strong. It creates a very uh, symbolic thing of it all. And but that's my own faults of it all. So I will recommend that in Zero to read. Just give it a chance at least. Of course, haters is always gonna hate, and I will forever curse them to my dying breath. However, I'll look forward to see where this gem is floating. If it's not gonna get cancelled in 2019, then at least let it soar a little bit more, and we'll see what happens. If we're ever gonna get to the point where they're gonna have an enemy voice actors, though, who do I believe gonna voice? I mean, I hope Chiharu Sawashiro will gonna voice Shiki, or maybe the guy Genga Aoku. Oh no, I can't remember his name. The guy who voiced Asta. Maybe he can do it. As for Rebecca, maybe Ayana Sakura would have been a nice shot of it all. Or maybe the girl that voices, the girl in The Promised Neverland. Maybe that would be a nice voice. Happy would, of course, still be voiced by the girl Rie Kugiyama who voices in the previous one. But I would prefer if Ayume Murase had voiced Happy there. It would have created a distinct feel. The same would have gone from this Ersa, Yuko Kaida, maybe, and Wise for the younger guy, maybe Mamoru Miyamo, or whatever how you say his name. Maybe Yusuke Kobayashi. Maybe even a more deep voiced guy. Who knows? Someone like that. Pino, though, well, we need an adorable voice for that. The woman who voiced the Palitis in that Cells at Work, I think she would have been very suitable for Sumire. I think her name was Sumire. I think she would have been very good if the voicing Pino. Well, do I have any rest Homura though? Yeah, that's the biggest question. Who would I see there? Well, maybe they will just cast a male. A female voice who is famous for voicing males in that one. You know, the girl who only voices boys most of the time. Or maybe she could be the person there who could have a very masculine, deep voice for Homura. Although that wouldn't be suitable. I would prefer more ladylike graceful voice. And who's gonna voice them that at that time? I'm not so sure. Mm, I have many suggestions, but I'm not sure of any of them, though. Who am I thinking of right now that would create that? Hmm. Maybe the second voice to Erina, or maybe even the girl who voices Megami. Maybe they would have been in that show at all. But who knows? It's too early to say if it's ever gonna get an enemy. Probably not, but hopefully it will. Any last thoughts on Eden Zero? No, I don't think so. I'm looking forward to where the story is heading, and hopefully I will still enjoy it as it is. The art is wonderful. The story, although confusing and may not be immediately draw in, is easy to understand and can be enjoyable when you give it a chance. The fights are pretty short, but they are awesome, and the ether gear has potential to become pretty good. The characters draw the story in all, and I like what I'm reading so far. So if you have any thoughts, do give me them. See you around.